What's going on, everybody? Hope you guys are all having a great day. Thank you so much for wanting to stop by and check out the video. Like and subscribe if you're new here, and without further ado, enjoy the video. Flight simulation has grown and evolved consistently throughout its history, starting with pixelated graphics, a simple, pale blue sky color, and an instrument panel that looks like it had been copy and pasted onto the screen, to today, where Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 incorporates the use of virtual reality to truly bring the game to life. Graphics that blur the line between flight simulation fiction and reality. What does this mean for the future of flight simulation? Where do we go from here? In this video, we're going to take a look at that. And if you find any of this useful or interesting, please like and subscribe, as it greatly helps out a small channel like mine. To start it off, let's play a game I like to call Bud Thorn. Taking a look at the simulators we have available to us today, and seeing what they did well, that would be the Rose. What we have to look forward to, that's the Bud. And finally the Thorn, which is where the games fall short. This is a generalization about all four flight sims: XP11, XP12, Microsoft 2020, and Microsoft 2024. Alright, starting off with the Roses. The first one I thought of was the graphics. The graphics in Microsoft 2024 are nothing short of spectacular. And honestly, flight sims in general today, the graphics are truly evolved. Even in XP12, which, yeah, it falls short of Microsoft 2024 and 2020 in this category, but it far exceeds its predecessor XP11 and certainly anything before that. The next Rose I have might be a bit of a controversial one, but it's performance. And we'll talk about this again later too. For now though, the fact that we can run a full world simulation with highly detailed aircraft online with others is pretty cool. With the middle of the road system, as I used to have, you can run the sim well enough to get the basics down. Obviously the graphics aren't going to be great and you're going to lose a lot of visuals that way. And the better system you have, the better experience you'll have. But don't let not having a 5090 and 100 gigabytes of RAM stop you from getting into the sim. The final Rose is things to do. There are literally endless amounts of things to do and places to fly, especially in the new simulator Microsoft 2024 with the addition of career mode, landing challenges, and world events. There's never a reason to be bored when you're playing flight sim. Secondly, I know the game's called Bud Thorn, but we're going to get into the Thorn next. I believe the biggest thorn plaguing the majority of our flight sims today are physics. Not so much in the X-Plane series, specifically in Microsoft 2020 and 24. However, even in X-Plane 12, there were plenty of times where I was flying the 172 and felt like I was flying a paper airplane, and even more so in the Microsoft series. Even though you might be flying something that's over 50,000 pounds, it feels like you're at the mercy of the wind. From real-world experience flying a Caravan that weighs almost 9,000 pounds, I promise it feels nothing the same. Although it's just a simulator, and they will never be able to capture what it feels like truly flying a real aircraft through the real sky. The next thorn is loading time. Loading into any one of these simulators takes a considerable amount of time. In my experience, XP11 and 12 are probably the fastest, with Microsoft 2020 taking the longest and 2024 being middle of the road, but still taking quite a while. The next con is particularly a 2024 issue, and it's one of the biggest ones that we've all talked to death and we all know about. The fact that 2024 is on the cloud. Now, I'm no computer whiz, but the game being on the cloud has been a disaster. It seems every time you load in, there's new glitches and bugs. Textures take forever to load in on the overhead panel, cabin, landing gear, you name it. The only positives, in my opinion, are the fact that the loading times are surprisingly fast to open the game, and it doesn't take up hardly any room on your physical computer. However, you pay for those pros in a lot of other areas, and it's just not worth it being on the cloud, in my opinion. Continuing on, the default airports are usually pretty terrible. Some, such as Baltimore, BWI, and DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth, are quite literally unflyable, with jagged textures and giant potholes in the ground that suck your aircraft up and you can't get out of them and have to restart your flight. Approaches to runways that just look like dirt at some of the biggest airports in the world is pretty unacceptable. Taxiways can be misleading or non-existent, and the same is to be said with the taxiway signs. Finally, the last thorn. Since we are still in the early stages of 2024, there always seems to be a new bug on every flight, especially with the keyboard functions. I feel like every time I click something on my keyboard, it's a risk, and you never know what it's really going to do. Alright, so I'm changing the rules of the game a little bit. We're actually going to skip the Bud, because we're going to get into a lot of the Buds later in the future section of this video. So I think it would be kind of redundant to talk about it in the Bud section and in the future section of the video. So moving on, we're going to talk about some community reviews. There's a lot of different opinions on Microsoft 2024 out there. So for this section, I summarized the 5-star reviews and the 1-star reviews and got some direct quotes from them, so you guys can make an informed decision on whether or not you want to spend your money on Microsoft 2024. On Google, Microsoft 2024 has received 1.8 out of 5 stars on 625 reviews. On Steam, it has received 3 out of 5 stars on 10,000 reviews. Going over some of the 1-star reviews, Most of the people were very displeased with the state of the game upon release, and even now, almost a month post-release, and the game is still not up to par, many said. A lot of people said the game wasn't ready to be released. And one person said, 40 plus years with Microsoft Flight Simulator, and this is the worst one yet. Many say it's bug-ridden, has server issues, career mode glitches, and even people with good specs on their PCs are struggling to run the game smoothly. On the other hand, people who left the game a 5-star review had the most to say about the graphics. For them, the graphics were truly game-changing, and many believe that it will change the landscape of the simulator moving forward. The people who left 5-star reviews for the most part didn't have any issues on release. Also, a lot of them waited at least 24 hours after the release of the sim to start trying to open and load things up. And on the contrary, to people with 1-star reviews, they believe that career mode gives them a reason to fly in the sim and gives new life in that area. One person said people are dumping all over it, but it's unfair criticism. To sum it all up, Microsoft 2024 certainly delivers in the graphics department, and the career mode, when it is working properly, is a very cool addition to the game. What do you think? Leave a comment down below if you'd leave a 1 or a 5-star review for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Okay, so moving into the future section of this video, this is where I want to talk about all the things we have to look forward to and kind of tie it in with our game from the beginning of the video, Bud Thorn. I believe the future of flight simulation coincides with the future of the real world. And what I mean by that is the incorporation of AI and VR. Let's start with VR because for the most part, it's already implemented in the big name simulators such as X-Plame and Microsoft Flight Simulator. Virtual reality increases immersion and realism, making you feel like you're really in the flight deck. You can ask yourself how long until home simulators and VR are commonplace, where you basically just have a level D simulator in your own house and you can basically just put yourself right into any type of cockpit that you want. Or you can just step into a bubble and play any kind of game you want, including Flight Simulator. Who knows? Many developers are moving towards a multi-sensory experience where you can feel certain things from the game, such as wind or sprays of water. Think about those 4D rides you used to go on at Disney, where the seat in front of you would blow air on you or something under your seat would spray water on your ankles. Imagine feeling a hard landing or bumping along with some turbulence in the flight sim. I think that'd be pretty cool. For me, AI is a bit more of a wild card. Who knows what kind of stuff we're going to be able to do with that, as we are just scratching the surface of it now. For the most part, it seems like most of the AI work will be done behind the scenes, used mostly in the development stages to handle tedious tasks, also to enhance the experience of the gamer with new graphics and things we never thought were possible. I think the most practical application of artificial intelligence in Microsoft Flight Simulator is going to be improved environments, weather patterns, car traffic, trees, buildings, vegetation, etc. Okay, moving on. Flight simulation standards today are higher than ever before. Imagine a big name developer like Microsoft or Laminar Research releasing a simulator that looks like P3D or Flight Simulator X. It would be truly unacceptable. The groundwork for the future, I believe, was laid in Microsoft 2020 by companies such as Phoenix, PMDG, WinWing, and AnyBuilds. The bar has been raised now, and it's higher than ever. People's standards for the sims are no longer what they were in flight simulators of the past. The graphics, the planes, the ATC, ground handling, etc. Even the environment and the way the planes interact with wind and weather. The new bar is real life. Every new plane that comes out, the first question everyone asks after how much is it study level? One of the largest markets in the sim today is third-party sceneries. Airports developed by outside communities or people, or even big corporations. Airports that are designed to make default ones as close as possible to the real thing. Not just on the planes and airports either. We're talking everything. Atmospheric things such as clouds, storms, rain, snow, seasons, all the above. For the aircraft developers, it's systems depth. Failures, sounds, modeling, textures, even toilets that flush, such as in the iFly Max. I believe the standard today is real life, and people are upset when Microsoft Flight Simulator isn't that, especially 2024, and especially a plane that you might spend pretty good money on that doesn't deliver. Moving on to the next, we as flight simmers know that the best part of any simulator, whether it's XP11, XP12, Microsoft 2020 or 2024, is the community involvement, specifically third-party add-ons. Things that make life so much easier, such as checklists, frame generation mods, things like VATSIM to talk to real life, real world, real people, controllers, and connect all different simulators together. Other things we talked about earlier, like sceneries for airports, updated cities, weather, and environment add-ons. The stars of the show, however, are the aircraft developers. Freeware developers like Fly-by-Wire, Zebo, and Headwind. Payware developers such as Phoenix, PMDG, AnyBuilds, and iFly. These add-ons, as we call them, are what we as flight simmers get excited about. Waiting on a new plane to drop or an airport from your favorite developer. It's because of the hard work of the community that the sim becomes what it is. Soon enough, Microsoft 2024 will become almost unrecognizable from the base game that was released towards the end of 2024. The game is simply the platform, and the community builds on top of that. Okay, so for the final segment, I have something a little bit different. So on your screen now, you're going to see a screenshot from a function of Steam called Steam Charts. And I didn't know this existed until I started doing research on this, but I thought it was very interesting and pretty much backs up the story that I'm going to convey to you guys right now. And that's being that it's obviously no secret that Microsoft is leading the way in flight sim right now. 2020 and 2024 both doing better than their direct competition, X-Plane 11 and 12. Now, a lot of people probably won't be very happy to say that. Even myself, as a former X-Plane 11 user, it's where I got my start. You just can't really deny it. And here are some numbers that we found very interesting from Steam Charts. So on your screen now, we're kind of taking a blast from the past, so to speak, of looking at X-Plane 11. So at the time of taking this screenshot, which was only a few days ago, 11 minutes prior to taking the screenshot, you had 620 people playing X-Plane 11. Its peak, now I don't know if this is like all-time 24-hour peak or how this is different, but the peak during a 24-hour period, I guess probably the last 24-hour period, I would assume, anyway, was 661 people. And the all-time, I would assume, playing at one time would be 4,173. And then if you kind of look at the chart on the bottom there where it goes 2018 to 2020, 2022, you had a peak player, just a peak amount of players right after the start of 2020, it looked like. Then over the course of the last 30 days, you've had an average of 574 players a day, which is actually an 8% gain and a 45 player gain over those last 30 days. And over the last 30 days, you've had a peak of 936 players. So still, almost 1,000 people a month hopping on to play X-Plane 11. So pretty interesting there. And then next we're going to take a look at its competitor, Microsoft 2020. All right, now we're in a completely different category of popular when we're talking about Microsoft 2020. So over the course of the last, 20 minutes before I took this screenshot, you had 5,600 people online playing Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Over the course of the 24-hour period, you had a high of 5,800 people log on, and all-time peak 61,000 people played Microsoft Flight Simulator. And then obviously that peak, you can see at the very beginning of the chart on the bottom where the 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, you could see a steep decline coming from the ending part of 2020, the last part of 2020, and it kind of levels off here throughout 2020. It starts to decrease as we get closer to 2025 at the end, mostly because of 2024, Microsoft 2024 coming out. Over the last month, you've had an average of 5,100 players, that 98% gain, I would assume, from the last month. That's plus 1%. It was plus 6 or 8% or something like that for X-Plane, and it gained 49 people, so it's only plus 1, almost 2% for gaining almost 100 people for Microsoft 2020. So it's kind of crazy. And a peak amount of players this month of 8,755. Pretty crazy numbers there. So again, right, you're looking at Microsoft 2020 versus X-Plane 11. Microsoft 2020 much more popular, much more successful. Even at X-Plane 11, its peak being 4,100, something like that, 4,000, 5,000 players. Microsoft 2020's peak is 61,000 players, so pretty remarkable stuff for Microsoft 2020. All right, next on the list is X-Plane 12, because that was the successor to X-Plane 11, and then also the competitor, really, for Microsoft 2024. So X-Plane 12 has done worse in terms of the all-time peak, but generally about the same in terms of the first two categories. So about 12 minutes before I took this screenshot, 606 people were online. Over the last 24 hours, 638 people, an all-time peak of only 961, not even getting to 1,000 players at one time. Pretty tough numbers for X-Plane 12. Over the last 30 days, it's had 583 players, a gain of 55 from the last month, and that's 10%. So that's pretty solid. Peak players of 961. So those numbers are pretty comparable to X-Plane 11, but again, X-Plane 11 is the old game. These numbers should be, I don't know, you'd think that the new game would be blowing X-Plane 11 out of the water, but they're just not. So in terms of the X-Plane community, you really have people kind of you have people that still prefer to play X-Plane 11, obviously. And I think that's just because X-Plane 12 has been a little bit of a struggle, and I mean, for me personally, I just, you know, a lot of people had a lot of money invested in X-Plane 11 and stuff, and then now, you know, X-Plane 12 comes out and it's okay, you know. I feel like it's not, honestly, I don't know, I feel like it's not as good as X-Plane 11, but that's for another conversation. But anyways, pretty comparable numbers between X-Plane 11 and X-Plane 12, which is not what Laminar Research really. Okay, so the final chart that we're going to have here is the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 chart. And this one is probably the least surprising chart on here. Going back 20 minutes before the screenshot was taken, 3,200 players were online. I believe that not higher than the 5,000 that were online for Microsoft 2020, you know, a few minutes before I took the screenshot. 24-hour peak, 3,300 players, again, not higher than Microsoft 2020, and definitely not higher than Microsoft 2020 61,000. An all-time peak of just 10,000 people for Microsoft 2024, so still blowing X-Plane 11 and 12 out of the water, but obviously people not as happy with Microsoft 2024 as they were with Microsoft 2020. Over the last 30 days, you've had 3,100 people sign on. That is 765 less people. This is the only game we've seen with red numbers down there instead of green. That is, you lost 20% compared to the last month, and you had a peak players this month of 5,785. So pretty remarkable numbers. And again, I think that just tells me that people are not happy. People that bought the game and logged on and wanted to play and stuff like that are a lot to be desired from what they think they're getting with Microsoft 2024. And I mean, I know even me personally, I definitely still play 2020 more than I play 2024. So some work is definitely needed to be done. But yeah, okay guys, so to wrap up that I don't know, I thought those charts are pretty cool. I had never seen those before. But to wrap up that interesting little segment there, the numbers definitely do not lie. Microsoft Flight Simulator is the more popular game. 2020 is more popular than X-Plane 12. I'm sorry, 2024 was more popular than X-Plane 12. 2020 was more popular than X-Plane 11. The Microsoft product has blown X-Plane out of the water at this point. There are obviously pros and cons to each of the simulators, some of which we've gone over pretty in depth in this video, and we will talk about in later videos as well. Now, let's also not discredit Laminar Research. I mean, you have Laminar Research, which is a indirect competition with Microsoft, one of the largest companies in the world, and going toe-to-toe with them and holding their own. And the fact that we're even still talking about it and that there's a debate just speaks to the product that Laminar Research continues to put out. Okay guys, and to conclude this video, flight simulation as a whole has obviously come a very long way. Regardless of your opinion of Microsoft 2024 or 2020 or what's better or what's worse, there's always going to be highs and lows and things left to be desired, especially when you have a new sim come out. You know, and again, we put so much time and effort and money into our old sims that it's going to take a long time for these new sims to kind of get up to par. In terms of answering the question, is it X-Plane, is it Microsoft? It really comes down to what you prefer. I honestly think there's a place for both simulators, and if you buy one or the other, you'll always wonder if you made the right choice. And for me, it always turns into, I mean, buying Microsoft 2020, it wasn't necessarily a joke, but it was kind of just like, sure, I'll just try it out. If you buy one, you're most likely going to buy the other one, at least to check it out. And again, my opinion is if you have the means for it, just get both. So that question will not have to go unanswered in your mind as to which one you prefer, because it really is different. I mean, Microsoft 2020 and 2024 definitely have better colors and better visuals, but in a lot of ways, X-Plane 11 certainly, X-Plane 12, but the X-Plane series generally has better physics than the Microsoft series. So, you know, what do you want there? Which is better in your mind? Which is more important to you? Obviously, Microsoft being way more accessible, being out on Xbox and being able to play with a controller gives a lot of people the opportunity to play that really might not have any interest in being a pilot. Again, in my opinion, the future of flight simulation is very bright. Who knows? Maybe Microsoft 2024 or 2028 will eventually be used as an official flight training device. Either way, guys, no matter which way you lean in terms of X-Plane or Microsoft, God is good. Thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed, like and subscribe. Think about becoming a member too. We do some cool giveaways, and I have some really cool things planned for the membership side of things. So consider becoming a member for as little as $1.99 a month. But even just a like and a subscribe would greatly help out a small channel like mine. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.